It's Tuesday, Canna Fam. Here we go. What's up, my tokers, jokers, and smokers? Welcome back to another edition of Deliciously Dope's Daily Chronicles with your boy, Chef Rodney 117. Y'all, the snow has hit us, and it's for sure knocked everything astray. Everybody's stranded. It's a crazy-ass snow day here in Michigan, so be safe, be warm, grab a joint, bowl, dab, blunt, whatever you want, cuddle up, and let's listen to what our next guest today has to say. Y'all, he really doesn't need an introduction, so instead of an introduction, I'm going to tell you what he does. He's an advocate, an entrepreneur, and an author, and a thought leader among Michigan's cannabis community, y'all. He sits on the board of NORML in Michigan. For those of you that know, you know. He's also part of the Cannabis Caucus, the Redemption Foundation, and he's on the advisory committee for all of that. I mean, come on, it's crazy. He's published 2 books, written for almost all of the major cannabis print publications, and he's a professional cannabis photographer. Not to mention, he's one of Michigan's most experienced podcasters, y'all. It's absolutely insane with his, with his Jazz Cabbage Cafe. Y'all check that out today, 4:00. It's not even a question. And then he does the 420 Post podcast weekly. You guys, without any other further ado, I give you my man, Mr. Rick Thompson. Rick, how you doing today, baby?
Licking up right now. How are you doing?
Pretty good, man. Trying to stay warm with the weather, trying to, kind of just get things back to the way that, they were before we had all that snow last night. It was insane.
Snow is a beautiful thing. If you live in Michigan, you have to appreciate the change of seasons. And this is one of the things that we get. And frankly, you're in Michigan. We've been pretty lucky so far this year. This is the first time we really got walloped in this mid-February. So,
absolutely. I'm not going to complain. I'm going to complain for about 10 minutes after I'm done shoveling, then I'm pretty much done. You feel me? Like it is what it is at that point. I had to go dig a neighbor out this morning, so that was, I did my good deed for the day.
Nice.
They woke up and got stuck, and so I was just like, all right, well, So I'm not sure if you're that familiar with the show. It's basically just a bunch of W's. Everybody wants to work those goals in life, those W's, those wins, those things that we want to know, we want to do, and things like that. A little bit different here on the Daily Chronicles. We do W's, the who, what, when, where, and why of kind of like your favorites, your crazies, the best pot story, the whole nine, man. A little bit so that people that aren't unfamiliar with you can get more familiar with you, and through kind of understanding where you got your roots from. So it's crazy because like podcasting is new to me. Okay, I grew up cooking in kitchens. You talk to the people that cook, it is what it is. I mean, we had safety meetings, we call them then. We didn't ever think, nobody thought that it ever would be legal. And, thanks to the work that, you do with Jamie Lowell, Jamie Cooper, Ryan Bayshore, you got Adam Brooke, John Sinclair, for the work that y'all do there, it's made it more, accessible for the people who actually need it medicinally, and I got to say before we start, man, thank you for doing that. Not to mention, I definitely look up to you guys, doing the podcast thing, because it's like, That's what we're doing, you know what I mean? So if I can learn anything, you know, I definitely take things with appreciation, man. That's how we do it with gratitude, you know?
Well, thank you for saying it. All of the accomplishments you mentioned were all team wins. There's nothing in cannabis law reform that you get to by yourself. We even had a win just yesterday where a good friend of mine and a good friend of Michigan, Michael Toohey, won a court case to enable people who are on probation and parole in Michigan to utilize their medical cannabis, which the courts had been forbidding them from doing. And that was something he didn't even have to fight that fight. He was released from their control in December. He could have dropped it, but he kept going. Right. He wanted to make a case that set precedent for everyone in Michigan. It's a true example of what a hero does. When faced with an opportunity to quit, they continue forward, and he did.
That's exactly it. You know, that's kind of my mantra. Like, you know, I talked to you a little bit before about writing a book. One of the things that I write about is it really doesn't matter what you did to get to this current point in time. No matter what, it doesn't matter what you did. All that really matters is how far beyond the point where they told you you couldn't succeed. How far did you make it past that point? You know, how far did you go after they told you couldn't? That to me is what shows, you know, the true gratitude and really just personal accountability of a person and you know, giving back to a community such as cannabis. That's a huge win, man. It's an absolute huge win. More so for like everybody else involved. Let's say that you get a stupid driving infraction or you're on probation for whatever reason. Well, now that you're on probation, you know, it used to be you couldn't smoke medical cannabis, you know what I'm saying? Or you would drop dirty and go right back to jail. I mean, I honestly think that that's inhumane, but now thanks to the work of everybody involved, we don't have to worry about that, and I think that that's going to change the game. I think it's one step closer to where we kind of want to be, you know what I mean?
Well, you remember there was a time in Michigan where they passed a stupid law that said you had to carry your cannabis in a lockbox in the trunk, as if it was some kind of a cobra that was venomous and was going to strike anybody that came close to it, and they were really very harsh with that, and there were some people who has horror stories about police trying to utilize that law in order to get them and find them guilty of other things too. And eventually we got that overturned as well. The Carruthers case, which was a case where, you know, you couldn't make medibles, you couldn't make edibles if you were a caregiver and pass them to your patients at a time in Michigan. That's Earl Carruthers, a good friend of mine who's a good guy in this industry. And that was eventually overturned as well. So we see situations where the system still wants to behave the way the system is comfortable behaving, treating us like dirt and garbage and second-class citizens, but yet individuals stand up. John Turbeek with the Turbeek versus Wyoming case. Individuals stand up and they go all the way, and then they make a difference for every single one of us. It's important that we recognize those people and praise them.
Absolutely. And this is all still new to me, but it's definitely something worth learning and paying, you know, gratitude towards for sure, because it affects me. You know what I'm saying? This is a new industry. This is a new venture for me. If you want to talk about putting cannabis in food, I got you. That's kind of my forte. I was a chef for 26 years. Still am a chef. You never stop being a chef. You know, it's just, you know, cannabis, it helped me become sober, so I'm giving back. This is kind of my thing. And having the gift of gab, only a podcast kind of just makes sense for me. Let's circle back real quick and talk about the power, you know, the courts, if you will. It's interesting because consider yourself lucky if you've never had to actually deal with anything court-related. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter, traffic tickets or whatever. The point is, the system is allegedly supposed to, you know, treat you as though you're innocent until proven guilty. That's not how that shit works at all. It's the exact opposite. You're guilty until you're proven innocent. And it's interesting because it all comes down to, and correct me if I'm wrong, the verbiage. So you can say, you know, hey man, I smoked a lot of pot. That used to be incriminating, okay? Now you can be like, hey man, I smoked a lot of hemp. They don't give a shit. I smoked a lot of cannabis. They don't give a shit. I smoked a lot of marijuana. Wait, now they're paying attention to you. So it's trigger words, you know? And it's interesting because a lot of these trigger words are in a database, in Instagram, in Facebook, in social media. And once these things pop up, you're going to get hit. Now, my next question real quick before we get into the who, what, when, where, and why. Have you had any issues with social media, anything being taken down or being shadow banned or blocked or anything?
Absolutely. I'm the owner of the Michigan Cannabis Business Development Group, and I've done 12 or 13 different conferences across the state since 2015. These are big functions that I do at high-profile hotels or at university complexes. Typically, the Radisson Hotel in Lansing, right on Michigan Avenue, is where I do an annual event in December. And I've been banned from advertising on Facebook for a long time because I advertised business conferences where cannabis is not even allowed. But because of, as you mentioned, these individual keywords, these hit words, as they sometimes are referred to in the industry, you get your account flagged. And then you can dispute it, and then they flag your account again, and then you're done. And they don't want to hear from you. So definitely I've experienced that and continue to have that inconvenience shadow my life, even though it was several years ago.
You know, and it's I wonder what's going to happen if cannabis in its entirety becomes federally legal. I wonder what's going to happen, because then they can't do that. They can't. They absolutely 100% cannot do that. I mean, it's freedom of speech and blah 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 blah. But
they can do that, yes. Well, just because federal legalization happens doesn't automatically mean all these cascades of changes we want to have happen automatically. Right. Individual platforms can still ban any words they want. It's not illegal to say the word Nazi, but if you write the word Nazi on Facebook, you're going to get hit on one of those search engine things they find. So the fact is they can continue to discriminate against us in that way anytime they want. The thing is, each individual state has their own schedule of controlled substances. Just because the feds change cannabis off of Schedule 1 to something like Schedule None, it doesn't automatically make those state schedules change. It doesn't automatically create change on a state level. So federal action does certain things, but not the full wide spectrum of things we believe it should be able to.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is it's going to be state by state.
Yeah, but that's the trigger that most states need in order to go forward. Everybody's sitting at the starting line. They're all waiting for a signal. The federal legalization is that starter's pistol going off. Now, each state will start fast or slow based on how their particular individuals are. But there's a lot of them that are just holding their breath, waiting for the feds to take the lead on something. And perhaps with this new administration, we might have the team that can get it done in the first year or two of their administration.
I wholeheartedly agree, man. I wholeheartedly agree. I've never really paid attention to much in politics. It's not really, food itself is too political anyway. So it's just like, that's enough, And so, but I've really looked at cannabis because I have a lot of friends, spanning from, all over the world, really. And, the rest of the world is kind of going green with us, if you will. You've got, different places, like, let's see, Israel, or not Israel. Yeah, I think Israel just did some kind of medical program, and places that normally you'd be thrown in prison. But I'm good with that. What I really want to see happen federally, the only real thing that I give a shit about is there's people in different states where there's no medical program or a shake you want at best. I want to see those people that are suffering, that need it medically, have an easier accessibility to the product that they need to kind of heal themselves. You know what I mean? For example, I've got some friends in Philly that Pennsylvania, it's legal and stuff like that, but it's A, stupid, ridiculous, to pay for and get a hold of, and B, it's the way that they wrote it. Yeah, it's legal, but only barely. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where it's like, you can't have it in edibles or something like that, and like that's the only way that this individual could take it. So it's just like they're breaking the law just to make themselves be able to sleep at night. And I was like, well, that's not okay. So I really hope that federal goes through and recognizes these people and kind of helps them out, because let's face it, man, not having access to the medicine that you need, that's not all right. Oh, and by the way, insulin, we're coming for you, man. We're going to help you out there, because I got a lot of friends that have to have insulin, that have to pay for it, and they got to choose, man. Sometimes, bills versus living. It's a terrible world we live in, but thankfully, people like you and people that are fighting for this, it's making it more comfortable, I guess, is the best way to kind of put that. You know what I mean?
I do. Thank you very much for your compliment. I think there's freedom fighters everywhere, and people define their own particular missions. Some people are really big on Second Amendment. Other people are really big on women's rights. all of them deserve an opportunity to have their moment in the sun and to have their voices heard. I've stuck with this lane, and I've kind of been with this lane and the Flint water crisis as a lifelong. I grew up in Flint, went through Flint public school systems. I live in the township right now, just outside the city limits. I was a victim of the Flint water crisis, like everyone else that shops and eats and recreates within the city during that time period. The fact is, though, if you pick one thing and you do it really, really well, you can make a big difference. And
absolutely,
I really wanted to stick with this lane. I feel strongly about environmental issues too. But when you try and juggle too many balls, you don't pay attention to any one of them the way that you really should.
Correct. I mean, we're not done, man. It's I'm a tenacious bastard. I'm a loudmouth, so if you ever need any help, yelling, picketing, whatever have you, you just let me know. We'll make sure it gets done. I've had bigger, scarier, hairier, and, more life-threatening people yell at me with a sharp object in their hand than these other people. Whatever. I'm used to it. But let's get into it, man. Let's get into it. So this first section is all about your first time. We all have those memories, those very simple, like, this is what happened. You know what I'm saying? So your first time, who, what, when, where, and why. Who was the first person you smoked with?
Some friends of mine and college roommates. I worked at Wendy's in Columbus, Ohio to put myself through college. I moved down there at 17 years of age to attend DeVry Institute of Technology. And at the end of a 2 a.m. shift, we went back to a buddy's little flat, little communal room thing that he had. And bong hit it. I was 17.
There you go. That actually answers my next question with, what was the first thing you smoked? So clearly a bong. Did you have a choice in that matter, or was it just the first that you're just like, screw it, let's go?
No, well, I didn't bring any cannabis. I didn't have any. I wasn't interested in cannabis at that time. That's what he used. And usually people that smoke bongs do it because they have a limited amount of cannabis, and bongs are really economical as far as using your cannabis. So in college, they're super popular because people, people get really creative with their stuff when the juices are flowing. So, and at 2 a.m., you don't want to do anything like roll a joint. You smell like fryer grease and Windex, and you just want to, crash out, have a little bit of thing, and then go home. So, yeah.
Yeah. So you were saying, when was the next question? When was your first time smoking? So clearly college, and stuff like that after work. Where you got that, and your buddies. Why is the most important? Why did you just to try it?
Well, I've been not really big on cannabis at all. In fact, I was a really super big drinker in high school. I went to Flint Central High School, and I had been in sports, and then I injured my knee, and I kind of did more drinking after the knee injury than I did anything else. I was on the cross-country team, and I injured my knee, blew up my left knee. So I didn't do cannabis, and I had gone, after 2 a.m., a couple of shifts, sat there and had a beer while they were smoking. And finally, I just said, all right, fine, slide that thing over here. I got tired of the razzing, maybe I got tired of being teased a little bit too much about being the only guy that's not down with the frown. So, it was just keeping up with the Joneses and trying something new. When you're at that age and you're off at college, new stuff is what you're supposed to do.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah. No, it's interesting because it's like I left like working because I've always worked in kitchens. I've always done that. And I left working a kitchen to go to school, to go to culinary school, like a proper culinary school. And I got in there and I was like, I can't, the first like 6 weeks was rough. And then I just finally was like, I gotta leave. No one smoked weed. Like, I was around marijuana all of my life. I knew the metric system in high school. Okay. And that's because you grow up in it. I remember the first time seeing cocaine and someone's like, oh, no. Cause you remember, what BC powder is like that. You buy it in the little, it looks like crushed up Coke. They're like, no, it's just BC powder. And I'm like, okay, then why did you put it in your nose? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And, I didn't realize it until hindsight being 20/20 vision a couple years later that probably wasn't BC powder. But growing up around that stuff, it's kind of like you get used to it, and I couldn't deal with anybody that didn't have vices, because I already had vices. You had all these new kids in culinary school that were like, am I holding this knife right? And it's just cringeworthy sometimes, man. You look at people, you're not doing that right at all, at all. Let's get into the.
When people step into a new culture, oftentimes it does look like alien technology or an alien civilization. People that are not familiar with who we are and what we do, we use a lot of phrases and words, and we have gestures that mean certain things. And if you're not familiar with it, you can really feel like an outsider. And a kitchen can be exactly that same type of place too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I remember first walking into a kitchen when I was younger, like after working with my mom and stuff like that, and hearing some of the same words, there's kitchen calls and stuff like that, and same terms. And I'm like, all right, this makes sense. So that kind of helps a little bit, because that doesn't really change, but you're absolutely right. It's how it's said, really. And we could sit here and harp on, the anthropological meaning behind everything, and break it down to, sociology, wise, into the subcultures and things like that. But all in all, it's crazy how no matter what profession you're from, if you pick up a bowl or a joint or anything like that, people know. It's part of that, like you were saying, it's part of that getting down with the culture, if you will. I love it, man. I love it. Food's the same way. Everybody knows how to eat. I love it. So let's get into the favorite section. This is one of my favorites. This is how I really get to know people. Who was the first person, like your first favorite person to smoke with?
That, of all the times I've been on interviews, no one's asked me that question. Who is my favorite person to smoke with? All right. It sounds lame, but I'm going to go with my best friend, Jamie Lowell, now. I mean, I had girlfriends I like to smoke with, and I had best friends I like to smoke with, but Jamie and I are just on a wavelength. It's just different. He and I have done advocacy things together for over a decade. We've done entrepreneurial things together too. We've taken vacations together. So his wife is great. She always hassles me like she's my wife, which is excellent. I need a little bit of that from a woman every once in a while, throwing some shade my way.
There you go. That's a bromance I want to hear about. You feel me?
Yeah. So it's, he's my favorite person to smoke with, because it's so automatic. I hate to talk to him and not be smoking a joint. Maybe that's right. Something about him.
I don't know. I'm not familiar with him, so I can't speak on it. But at the same time, like it's a good question. That's a good question. Get a kind of a little paradigm shift there, if you will. What's you guys' favorite way to consume cannabis? Just smoking joints?
Oh, big fat joints all the time. Now, joints plus, that's cool too. I like to take some hash and roll a little snake and throw it in the middle of there, snake in the grass. I like to. If it's in the evening hours, a little CBN dipped in there, powdered in there. But I also like to wax up the papers ahead of time too. Nothing like smoking cannabis, and then you get to that one spot where there's a big little chunk of wax, and you get that waxy hit in. Oh, that is sweet. Oh, that is. Wow. So being able to spike it up with some keef, whatever. Now. There are sometimes I prefer just a straight joint, especially if I'm trying to enjoy the flavor of the cannabis itself. I'm a big citrus guy. I love my Agent Oranges. I love my Tangies. And if I've got something like that, I don't really need to spike it up. I'm having such a good time with the joint itself. But on other stuff that's still good, but doesn't have such distinctive character, I don't mind adding to it.
There you go. Love it. It's interesting because I just started dabbing like a couple of weeks ago, maybe like 3 weeks ago. I use my nectar collector for now. I'm going to end up buying a rig eventually, But I just switched back. I have a little bit of, this is some Cindy 99, like a little bit of shake, and I wanted to get rid of it. And I didn't really want to cook with it because it's interesting because you say it's very citrusy. This is very, very citrusy. It's quite potent, It is what it is. I don't know what we don't, it's homegrown, obviously. I don't know what the percentage of THC is, and that doesn't matter, but, it's really good. And so I just grabbed a bowl up and just started smoking a bowl today. Never mind the fact that I'm out of wax and stuff, but we'll get to the dispo or whatever tonight. But that's what I had on hand, so that's the way I'm going to do it. And now I miss it. I really do. I love rolling joints, man. We'll have to get together. I'll roll a joint for you because I actually do it from... I roll my own filters and I use my own paper and I roll those mad cones, dude. You want to talk about like some big doinks? I'll get you.
I have a friend, a friend of mine, a friend of Darren McCarty's, and he can be blindfolded. Aaron is his name. Mm-hmm. He can be blindfolded and roll a joint with each hand while blindfolded.
Tip and all, or just the joint?
I don't think he uses tips, to be honest with you. But,
it doesn't matter. Yeah.
It's still pretty awesome feat.
That's sweet. How is that not a world record?
He does it at certain special events. We make a big deal out of it because people are always taking pictures and they want to, have a hit off the joint that he rolled. So, and he gets one with the left, one with the right going at the same time. I can't do it. No.
I can do many things. That's not one of them. But at the same time, I don't want to even challenge it. He can have that. He can have
blindfolded.
And blindfolded. That's just...
Yeah, so... No, great guy. All kinds of fun stuff.
I mean, shit, how can you... Rolling two joints blindfolded at the same time, how can you not be a great guy?
Well, you have to be balanced, I assume.
Yeah.
Get a little zen. Want it more...
I could see him like, and he's rolling the joints real quick. Yeah, I could see that. I love it, man.
Full of good people with interesting skills and talents. And the thing is, a lot of these skills and talents, you would never know about them if you were meeting them under the auspices of a regular 9-to-5 job, or if you were members of, say, the Lions Club or a PTA, or if you were together, saving the whales or something like that. You just wouldn't know until you get to that cannabis experience, and then all the guards come down, all of the shell goes away, and people come out. Now you're sharing a joint with them, and now there's no reason to be insecure or to worry, because cannabis is involved. So it's all chill.
Oh yeah, it's interesting because cannabis was used to cure hangovers back in the day. For my line of work, and the hangovers were just, that was how you went to sleep at night. That's how I went to sleep at night, at least. And I never really looked at it as a cure until I stopped drinking and needed something to go to sleep. And then I just started noticing that I started using, slowly but surely, cannabis for everything. And you're absolutely right, dude. It melts away that anxiety. It kind of like, you don't need to break the ice because the ice isn't there. It's a figment of your imagination,
When people are upset and they have emotional issues going on, and they're all up in their head. You know what I'm saying? You've been there.
Oh,
I know.
Absolutely.
When you're all up in your head, you take some cannabis, and then you do something like listen to music or watch television or do something that allows your brain to become distracted. The cannabis facilitates that distraction so that you're no longer focused on the thing that's driving so much anxiety into you, that's driving so much sadness into your soul. You're using cannabis plus other stimuli in order to take you out of that zone. And I know people that can never break out of that zone. They're just in there. And they're miserable people, and they make the people around them miserable because they just cannot distract their minds from the troubles that they perceive that they're experiencing or from the worries of yesteryear. And I think some people should really, really have cannabis. Cannabis to a significant degree, really to just melt that stuff away.
It's interesting because, one of the days that chefs really don't appreciate or don't like, believe it or not, is Monday. A lot of kitchens are closed on Mondays because of, it's just kind of, a revamp. You got to prep. If you have enough staff, you have enough staff. But, you spend this entire weekend just balls to the wall, 12-hour days back to back. You're slammed this weekend. You kind of want to recharge on Mondays, but let's face it, no one really likes Mondays. To a chef, Mondays are a melodramatic Molotov of, madness mixed with morphine in order to numb the monotony of their malcontent. You know what I'm saying? I've noticed that instead of taking that long and very, accurately painted description of Mondays, I just spark up a joint, and then it just sums all of that up to mellow as shit. And that's the thing, and if it can help chefs, do their job, I'm convinced it can help anybody else literally do anything. It's just interesting. And it goes back to what you were saying, all of these talented, good people that are just coming up out of the woodworks, man. That's what I fucking love seeing. I can't emphasize that enough. I love it, man. That being said, sorry.
No, you go. I was just going to talk about the food service industry because I've been in the food service.
Absolutely. But,
you're there Saturday and Sunday. What are you doing all weekend long? Depleting the shelves. You're taking on all of the stuff. You're emptying out. All your sauces are gone. Now your pre-made salads are gone. Now all your desserts are served up. And now on Monday, it's time for you to do the non-fun grunt work of recreating giant batches of sauces, recreating 50 salads that you're going to sell over the next 3 or 4 days. Slicing pies and individually wrapping, whatever it is that you have to do in that particular food service situation. It can be a real downer, especially after the adrenaline junkie that sometimes chefs and waitresses are when they get really swinging. They kind of dig it, they're in the zone, and that's intoxicating. And then you come in the next day and there's no zone. There's nothing intoxicating. It's just drudge work. Ooh, that can really
absolutely. You have to understand that after the curtain closed on, that energetic and kind of exhausting act that is the weekend, you're at a new level of feeling drained and defeated, and it's to the point to where like you didn't think that life could take any more from you emotionally, but seeing the mix of those two emotions and, the mind of a young cook is absolutely a recipe for ruin, and now that we can medically use cannabis and it's open, legal states to recreationally use cannabis, and I think that's going to change some things for people. But the problem is, if you're not able to shake that, your creativity is halted. We need to get out of this toxic mentality of the restaurant industry and the cannabis industry and the industry period that, personal accountability is key. You're screaming and yelling at somebody, that's not going to help them cook faster. You understand? Many of times when I've been yelled at, I'm not gonna lie to you, many a times have I just straight shut down. I was scared. I was terrified. I can't work faster because I'm already working as fast as I can go, and it's pretty fucking fast. You know what I mean? I'm freezing because it's like, what do you do? What do you do? Oh, you're supposed to overcome that fear. No one learns being screamed at. Okay, you screaming at me isn't going to make, table 9 calm down anymore. That's not how that's going to happen. So we just need to nip this in the bud right now, and so that's really kind of like bringing back like humanity to everything through just smoking a joint. I think that's the best thing really, which leads me to my next question. When do you enjoy smoking weed?
I enjoy smoking weed from the very moment that my eyes flutter awake in the morning until about 10 o'clock at night. Now,
there we go.
I have a little bit of a problem. If I smoke cannabis in the evenings and I fall asleep while I'm high, I sometimes wake up with a migraine. And when I get migraines, it ain't pretty. So I don't do anything to potentially trigger migraines. So I don't have more than one drink during the day when I drink alcohol, which isn't very often, and I don't smoke after 10. So anytime up until then, it's fair game, man.
Question, if you don't mind. So let's say, 10 o'clock hits, like you kind of had a rough day. What about tinctures, bud?
Don't do anything with cannabis in it. I don't take edibles. I don't do any of that stuff afterwards. I just want it all to be purged from my system before I close my eyes and go to sleep. It took me a long time to figure out this was triggering some of my headaches in the mornings. But when I did and I changed my behavior, then my love for the cannabis plant became deeper because it was no longer a source of oftentimes pleasure, but sometimes pain. Now it was all pleasure. So much better.
I mean, it kind of makes sense if once a person fully kind of understands the ECS, the endocannabinoid system, and the entourage effect more aptly, it was aptly discovered to be, Adam Brooks told me, the entourage, or not the entourage, the ensemble.
The ensemble effect, yes, right. From Dr. Grinspoon in our interview several years ago before he passed away.
Yeah. And it's absolutely right. So to kind of break it down real fast for the people that aren't familiar with it, the entourage effect would mean that you're taking one cannabinoid and lifting it up and making it important. And then it's just, kind of followed by like think a celebrity with an entourage. That's actually not the case. So when we're doing it, it's like the entire sound of an orchestra. So each cannabinoid, each instrument has its own part to play to make the entire song sound good. So you're hearing the whole thing. So entourage is kind of like, while it's still credible and people know it and stuff, it's not right. We want to help educate people, and trust me, Adam Brooks will tell you, he won't let you have that. It's the ensemble effect. And so with the ECS and the ensemble effect, I can absolutely see how those cannabinoids would kind of wreak havoc on your system, you know what I mean, and kind of give you a migraine. I can absolutely do it. I've woken up still high, after, smoking a really good strain the next morning, and I'm just like, well, not doing that one again, so you'll learn how to properly medicate and when to do it, for sure.
Medibles, too. Your body processes things very slowly during your sleep state. So oftentimes the cannabinoids that you've consumed before you went to sleep just sit in your liver, and when you wake up, they're all there, and they're all going, hello! And it's quite a startling effect, too. I have an issue with alcohol too, so it's not necessarily just cannabis that triggers that reaction to me. If I have any kind of a stimulant or intoxicant in my system, when I go to sleep, I'm going to have a problem in the morning. So it's something unique to me, although I think other people have it too. But that's why we all have to be in tune with our own bodies. We have to listen to what our body's telling us, as well as listen to what the plant's telling us too.
Absolutely.
Dabba Dave.
Yeah. What's up, Dabba Dave? How you doing this morning, gentlemen? Absolutely. No, Dave's one of our, he's on every episode, man. He's one of our followers. I love that guy. So where is your favorite, current place to smoke?
Out of doors. I absolutely would love, and I've done this several times, in a canoe in Bald Martin State Park, or over in, what's that beautiful park over by Clarkston? Holly Recreation Area. You take a canoe, you put it in the water, you go. There's lakes there that are all connected by little canals, big lakes. You can go to a private spot where you are watching dragonflies land on lily pads, and your sun-dappled skin is warmed by the blah, 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 and the lapping water, blah, 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 and you're smoking. Yeah, that's my fave right there.
There you go. Mine's pretty similar. It'll probably be in nature, on a trail or something, but I'm going to just sum it up with whatever the girl wants to do, whatever the old lady wants to do. Wherever she's at, that's where I want to smoke, because honestly, you can't hold her down. She's going hiking somewhere and taking my ass with her. So, I feel you. There's some property that we own up north we go hiking on all the time, and whenever we go up there, love it, man. Just sit there and take an ounce with you, roll a bunch of J's, call it a day, walk the dogs. Hell yeah.
I've tuned in on Facebook to a couple of different Michigan Facebook pages, different state park Facebook appreciation pages. And some of the photos I see of our state, I've been all over the place, and I feel like I haven't even touched the surface yet. There's so many places. Now, what you really need to do, Chef, though, if you really want to live Michigan, go to the Upper Peninsula and do a waterfall tour. It's a driving thing. You'll drive all around the whole. Oh, that is so beautiful.
Tequamanon Falls is where we started, and then we went around, yeah.
Yeah, Tequamanon Falls in the wrong time of the year, the black flies will eat you and take you away. But in the right time of the year, it's a beautiful experience.
Oh, it absolutely was. For those of you who are vape people, okay, we did a vape session because we didn't want to smoke around, kids or anything like that. That's, a whole. So we did a vape session, and then we went on the hike in the Tequamanon Falls. I don't recommend doing that because there's a lot of stairs. There's so many stairs, and I was out of breath. I was winded. Can't add the fact that I got fat with COVID to it, but fact of the matter is, you're gonna get a little winded, but it's worth it.
Bald Mountain. If you ever get to Marquette, just I think west of the bay, there is something called Bald Mountain, and I was a student at Northern Michigan University. I was married on the banks of the Tequamanon River, actually, right by where you were at, just not that far ago, out of Newberry. But if you go to Bald Mountain, part of it's stairs, part of it's just rough trail. But when you get to the top, it's literally it's a mountain, and it's bald because it's just bare rock at the top. But the views of Lake Superior to the north, and then the views of the whole Upper Peninsula all the way back to the Porcupine Mountains, when you look back at this, completely worth it. So exhausting to get there, but so worth it to be there.
It's funny that you should say Marquette, because about 17 miles from Marquette is a little town called Gulliver.
Mm-hmm.
My family owns a little over a couple hundred acres, actually, of just land up there. And so I think this summer, and I've been to it a few times. I don't really remember it, because when I was up there, it hammered, and so like I want to go back this summer and take pictures and things like that, and then see if I can't plant some hemp up there. I'm sure they wouldn't mind.
Yeah, Gulliver that's bear country. So
that's bear country.
You got
black bears.
Black bears in Michigan are easy to deal with, actually, to be honest.
Believe it or not, I've actually seen a bear down here in Lansing. I was it's not Lansing, it was St. John's area. Yeah. Sleepy Hollow campground. We was camping one summer, and all of a sudden golf carts and Ranger trucks, everybody just started rushing to this one area, and I'm like, the hell is going on? You see DNR and shit. And my mom went up to the information center and came back, and she goes, well, they saw a black bear, so everybody's. I'm like, yeah, but why did it need 6 cars and like a dozen men? Like, it's a black bear. Like, it's no one gives a shit. You know what I mean?
That's why. Yeah. It's the most excitement they've had all year.
Yeah. Smoke a joint. You'll be excited,
Bears are kind of smelly if you get up close to them. So,
that makes
it's not
sense.
an experience you really want to have. Just be loud and be big. Take your jacket, make yourself large, right? Mm-hmm. Be loud. They go away. They're not bad.
Smack the ground, stomp the ground, do whatever. You just make yourself look ferocious. You'll be all right. Black bears really won't do shit.
Pretty well fed. There really is no predators. They kind of have the run of the territory. Nobody pushes them around, especially down in the lower peninsula. In the upper peninsula, elk and moose, sometimes they get pushed off of things. But down here, they're all fat and happy. If they run across
it's the up and coming cougars that we got to worry about. The mountain lions. Have you seen these?
On Calor. I did a bachelor's thesis on mountain lions and cheetahs.
Well, there we go. I didn't get to see it firsthand, but a friend of mine who lives out near Bath, the DNR got a picture of it on one of their trail cams, and they're like, well, you can't not confirm it. It's a fucking mountain lion. You know what I mean? So it's interesting how, like, you wouldn't think that one would be in Michigan, but at the same time, if you think about it, it makes sense.
Well, if you look at historically, when trappers first came here, when the French set down Fort Lafayette, which became the city of Detroit, that was in the 1600s. There were mountain lions. You can call them anything you want: mountain lions, pumas, catamounts. Felis concolor is their Latin name. They were all through the state, and then they were hunted and driven out. They need large range. Because of the way that they eat, they can't cluster together. So if somebody moves into the range, they move. So as we advanced, they retreated. So it makes sense that now that their numbers are growing because we're no longer shooting them for their pelts, that they would return back to their ancestral home.
I love it, man. I love it. Just be careful when you're hiking. That's all I, pretty much got to say about that. I've seen some crazy shit from California where mountain lions have attacked hikers.
We talked about bears being easy to scare away. Mountain lions are not. Pumas are not.
Nope.
No.
You won't hear it. You won't hear it.
They're territorial. The reason that coyotes attack dogs around the houses and stuff when coyotes come into neighborhoods, not because they hate dogs or they're going to eat them. They're territorial. They want to kill anything else in their zone that looks or smells like them. And your dog looks and smells like them. And cougars, they want to push out anything that's a large, potentially competitor in their territory, and that means us.
I correct me if I'm wrong, but there's like a low growl or a low purr that you would hear if there was one around. If they know you're there.
If they're trying to stalk you, you'll never hear them. But if they're trying to warn you that you're in their territory, yeah. And I imagine, I've not ever heard it personally, but I can imagine that you have no doubt what it is you're hearing and that it makes your shit free.
It does. I've actually had a run-in with one. I was hiking in like the hills of West Virginia with some friends. Whiskey and walking is really what we were doing, and it was probably, I don't know, 50 yards from us or so. No, it had to have been more than that. I was drinking, and we were a group of like 10 or 15 people. One person had a weapon on him because he's just, that's him. He's a mountain man. He's gonna have his firearm, and we were smoking and drinking, have a good time. And all of a sudden, we heard this low growl, and all of a sudden, people start smacking, just doing what they can, walking towards this shit. And I look up and I see this thing kind of running back up the ravine the other way, and I'm like, no, oh hell no, I'm the first one that's gonna die. Oh hell no. So it made, dude, even talking about it now is making my skin kind of stand up a little bit. But that's
when you look at your fellows and you realize you're the slowest one in the group. Yeah, you don't want to walk towards that guy.
No. I wanted to impress this one girl that we were hanging out with, but I figured I'll try something. I'll just cook for her because I know I can do that and survive that. Whereas that cougar will kill me. It doesn't. Nature is scary as shit. You feel me? But
carve a pine. So do something like that to impress the chick. Don't risk your life. Have it fly.
Macrame. We'll do some Valentine's Day macrame or some shit.
Macaroni pictures like we did in kindergarten.
There you go. Mom always loved those, right?
Right.
We'll do a 5-finger turkey pot leaf drawing for her or some shit. Now, here's the question. Right. Here's the question to kind of tie up all of your favorite, who, what, when, where, and whys. Why do you smoke weed?
I smoke cannabis because I like the person I am while I'm smoking cannabis. I don't dislike me when I don't smoke cannabis, but I'm a person who values creativity, who values free thought. So if I'm smoking cannabis, I have some of the greatest ideas, and I have some of the best reliving of memories ever. When I don't have cannabis, I'm fine, but when I have cannabis, I like who I am. I like what experiences I have, and I like how it flavors my life. Just adds a little sprinkle of salty goodness upon what is already a fantastic, beautiful meat.
There you go. Love it, man. I love it. So these next ones are kind of like the it's got kind of crazy situations, and these are the things that we need to talk about to kind of bring awareness to it. So who, what, when, where, and why? Who was with you the first time you just got absolutely way too high? Like, I'm talking full panic attack. Like, who was there?
The time that I can recall being way too high was when I had too many medibles, and that was after I'd been at Big Daddy's. Big Daddy's was a dispensary chain in Michigan. Here we had 5 dispensaries across the state before a combination of factors shut us down. And in our very first one, I was on the board of directors, and we ran my magazine out of the offices in Michigan Association of Compassion Centers. And I remember eating too many brownies. Oh, there's a second time I got spaghettied. I didn't realize the spaghetti sauce was medicated, so I had 2 helpings of spaghetti, and then I got spaghettied. So I was for like 45 minutes at a single table. But yeah, so my cohorts at Big Daddy's were with me when I got way too high the first time.
Well, obviously, eating, it's a different, a whole different monster, because I'm sure you well know this, but for those of you that don't know, so when you smoke cannabis, a lot of what you're doing gets combusted off via the flame. Like, if I were to hit this, a lot of your cannabinoids get burnt off. That's what happens, because cannabinoids they burn off at a certain temperature. Now, if it's done correctly with decarboxylated product, whether it be distillate, don't do that, or butter, or whatever have you. But if it's infused correctly, each whatever portion is going to have a certain milligram dosage of THC and CBD, but whatever. So what you're doing is you're having more absorption of these cannabinoids, ergo you're able to get, these terpenes, a broader absorption of terpenes, so you get more cannabinoids, so your system can absorb way more than just smoking it. You know what I'm saying? Which pushes people over the edge sometimes. That's why you get hit differently with edibles than you do anything you smoke. Aside from the brownies and being spaghettied, if you will, what was the first thing that what was the one thing that kind of pushed you over the edge? Or was it just kind of like too much too quick?
Really, I think it's just all of it coming together at once. The classic situation where you have someone who's doing edibles for the first time, they eat a little bit, they don't feel anything, so they think, wow, that was pretty shitty, I better eat some more in order to catch up. And all of a sudden, like a freight train, from behind, you can't get up, or you have to find a seat, one of the two. When the wave hits you, it's best to find a place where your feet aren't important and just rest there for a while.
Play the floor as lava. That works out really well. It works out really well. I remember one time my buddy, it was right when dispensaries first opened up. I was giving him a ride home from work, and he's like, "Hey man, on the way home, if you don't mind, like since we got off early, that night, he's like, can you swing by the dispensary?" He's like, "I'll buy you something." I was like, "Yeah, sweet." So he bought this little it was a Rice Krispies treats, decent sized bar. It was 100 milligrams. He goes, "All right, check it out." And he broke like a good 3/4 of it off. He goes, "Eat this." I was like, whatever. So I just smashed it. Didn't worry about the dosage, didn't nothing. And I didn't really do edibles a lot before I smoked, but whatever. I had time to drop him off, and then I smoked a joint with him after I dropped him off, and then I waited a few minutes, and then I drove back to my house. You know what I mean? It was like around the block. And so then I parked my car outside my house. I walk inside, and as soon as I shut my door, wham, it hit me. And it was just, whoa. Had I waited probably another 20 minutes or so, I wouldn't have been able to leave his house. I didn't feel comfortable at all. You know what I mean? So I get that. The overstimulation really is one of the biggest issues because it can be too much too quick. That's why we say it's important to educate and medicate. Know what you're taking, when, where, and why,
Do it with a friend. Because
absolutely.
Now you've got a friend that can guide you through it. If you're having a difficult time for whatever reason, or they are, then you can depend on each other in order to make sure that things are fine. And nobody draws penises on your face with a magic marker.
Right. The party rules still work. If you make it to one hand in your bedroom, they can't touch you, right? Well, you already kind of went over. Yeah, right. We had this rule, because you drink with the same group of people growing up. People that you work with, people of the profession, friends and stuff like that. We had this rule that if you passed out with your shoes on, you were fair game. It didn't matter where you were. If you passed out with one room or an attempt to make it to your bedroom with your shoes off, nobody can touch you. You were trying to make it to your room or whatever have you, or trying to make it to a bedroom or something. But if you passed out in the living room with your shoes on, you were absolutely fair game. And we all had Sharpies. So it don't wash off too easy. There was a lot of penises drawn on a lot of faces, and some of them may or may not have been servers that had to work in a couple of hours. Just say it. They were not happy. But you kind of touched on, when and where. You told us what happened, with Big Daddies and things like that, which totally makes sense. Again, I'm upset with, hearing that you got spaghetti. You definitely tell somebody how potent it is,
I honestly, if I had asked anybody, they all would have told me. But I was at the refrigerator, I saw spaghetti, and I was hungry, and I didn't ask.
Yeah,
and
that's fair.
Maybe there was a sign on it at one point that fell off or something like that, but I don't blame anybody else.
Fair enough.
It just is something that happened.
Exactly. And to touch on the last, to kind of tie all that up, why did it happen? It was just, too much too quick. It is what it is. It's interesting though, because let's go back to anxiety real quick. If you're having an anxious day, you smoke a joint, smoke a bowl, kind of use it to kind of melt away the anxiety. Though I would not recommend edibles unless you can handle it. If you know everything, don't let me, I'm speaking to it's a novice speaking to a pro at this point. But, if you're having a bad day, I wouldn't say dive directly into brownies or in this case, spaghetti sauce. That could have an overstimulation, which could trigger panic attacks and do the exact opposite of what you're trying to cure. Very similar to you smoking or anything like that before you go to bed with the migraines.
Yep. The fact is, you should always start slow to learn more about how your body is going to interact with the plant, and recognize that different applications of the plant mean probably a different response from your body. And if you're fortunate enough to have friends that are more experienced than you, lean on the people that know. Trust their guidance, and move at a slow pace, because you're not trying to rush towards Valhalla. You're just slowly making your way along that journey and killing as many people as you can to get there.
The Norse in me, man, appreciates you saying that. Really do. I actually frequent Holly quite a bit for that same reason. But before we get to the last part, I want to touch on something. So you say, know your limits and things like that, and that's really important. A lot of people will start small. That's fine, a joint a day or whatever have you, and then they'll build up this thing they call a tolerance. Now, the reason that I use the stupid little rabbit ears there is tolerances do but don't exist. Here's why I say this. With cannabis, you're not building up a tolerance. You're not building up a resistance. Your body's getting comfortable. Your body's getting comfortable to how much, cannabis is inside of it. For example, if you smoke a bowl today, in a couple of days, and you take a drug test, most likely you're going to fail it for marijuana. Well, that's because your body hangs on to it, because the endocannabinoid system wants this. It needs this. You don't have a Jack Daniel's system. That's why, as soon as you're drunk, in a couple of days, let's say you don't drink, anymore, you'll be free of alcohol, because it's a toxin, man. It's a poison. Your body wants to flush it out. So that's why I say, you're not building up a tolerance. Your body's becoming comfortable. It's important that people know that.
Well, if someone says they have a tolerance, let's face it, if you took 2 or 3 days off and didn't smoke anything for 2 or 3 days, and your body purged all of the cannabis and the cannabinoids that were stored in your fatty tissues, because when you have too much cannabis in your bloodstream, sometimes it gets stored in the fatty tissues. That's just how it goes. That's one of the reasons why you can still test positive for cannabis, even if you've been incarcerated for 2 months and haven't had any access to it, because your body's slowly liberating that stuff that you've stored all that time. But if you have built up a tolerance, but then go through what we sometimes call a purge, take a couple days off and then come back to it, you're not having a tolerance level anymore. Now you're at a totally different game, because it's not about tolerance. It's about what your body system has accumulated due to your usage.
I like that. I like the way that you said that a lot better. Mind you, I was just kind of looking at it from my own personal perspective, but it's important that people, basically take what you just said and really understand that. I believe that when you see all these people smoking like all these bong hits at once and all like 10 joints and like drinking 3,000 milligrams, they're doing it to show off. All right. I don't want to be that person that takes, an entire drink of 3,000 milligrams and slams it. That's not going to be fun for them in 20 minutes, in 20 minutes or so, because they're going to get hit and it's not going to be fun. You want to talk about psychoactives.
Well, slab dabbers, oftentimes I feel the same way too. First of all, I think that's a lot of medicine that a sick person could really be using, and how sort of selfish it is for you to take this gigantic, 10-gram slab of wax and then just slowly drop it right down onto the dab rig and just inhale the smoke and dragging it in and blow it out to prove something. I can't get there.
It's idiotic, really. It's really idiotic. It's go do something useful to society. That's really not helping us here. You know what I'm saying? Those people just need to slab dabbing. It shouldn't be a thing. But let's move on. Sorry. There's
a lot of things you can do, like the ice bucket challenge. You can do a lot of crazy things that actually benefit people that develop charities and whatever. This just seems like it develops personalities, and I don't really think that's cool.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like it's really not people that I would want to associate with, mainly because they're trying to show off with the slab dab, and it's just like, dude, like. There's so many people that could heal from that. I could heal from that. Yo, give me half that. Screw this. You know what I mean? Like, damn. But you can't change most people, and at the end of the day, it really doesn't affect anything that I'm doing. So, I may dislike it, but at the same time, let them live their life. That's where I'm at with it.
When
it's
people
just, it's kind of dumb,
people have access to stuff, unlimited access, they really don't value it. So if you have someone that has unlimited access to money, they don't really value it. If you have such a successful cannabis grow that you have basically unlimited access to wax, you blow through wax. You gift a lot of it away. You smoke a lot more than you probably should. You do slab dabs. It all comes with the culture of excess, E-X-C-E-S-S, that we are so addicted to here in the United States of America.
Oh, yeah. Consumerism at its finest, isn't it? Let's talk about some planned W's, if you will. The who, what, when, where, and why of what you aim to do, how you aim to heal, and things like that. I put it at the end because it's a good little, we've talked about where you came from, why you did what you did, kind of how you did it, and this is really what you aim to do. So who, what, when, where, and why? Who do you wish you could smoke with, dead or alive?
If they're alive right now, Elon Musk. I'd love to smoke with Elon Musk because, first of all, I would chew his ear off because I have all these ideas. But second of all, that's a person who has, in my estimation, the greatest ability to affect the direction the human species travels of our time. I mean, Gates has a lot of money, but Elon's talking about putting colonies on Mars. That's something that only nations ever considered previously. He's got a reusable rocket, which we couldn't develop. American scientists said it couldn't be done, and he did it.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's if you want to talk about moving past a point after they told you were going to fail, Elon Musk is a prime example. Plus, so many people hated that guy. Oh, he smokes so much weed. Come on. You can't design SpaceX not smoking weed. He was just like, yeah, check this out. That's all he said. And then whatever it was just gospel after that, man. He's
got a room full of brilliant stoner friends, and he just steals their ideas. He gets them all high, and then he's like, oh, really? Oh, okay, self-contained aeroponic units and drop them on Mars before people get there? All right. Thank you, Charles. So... how I imagine.
I love it though. And it's interesting because it's like talking about Elon Musk, he's one of the people, in addition to Google and Gary Vaynerchuk, that says, I don't give a shit about your college degree. I don't care if you have one. If you want to actually work and you know what you're talking about and shit like that, get a hold of me. You know what I'm saying? Come work with me. I love that shit. And it's that's how it was in the kitchen. We don't care if you've been to culinary school. Do you know how to cook an egg? All right, cool. Can you cook a steak? All right, cool. I'll teach you the rest. Skills can be taught. Character, that's a whole different story.
And drive. If you don't have internal drive, if you don't have a fire inside you driving you,
that tenacity,
then all the education and all the tools just might be wasted on you.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more, man. Now, what would you smoke with him?
Probably some great Durban poison. Durban poison's a great medicinal cannabis strain. It also is a relaxing one. It allows people to maybe be more creative and allows you to have open dialogue. I wouldn't want something that's so couch locky that we just stared off into space and we're like, whoa. And I also would want something so uplifting that we were, jogging on treadmills while trying to have a conversation. I want something that's going to open up an otherwise closed individual without driving them out of the room, if that makes any sense.
I get it. Kind of create, put a drive behind me because I want to move forward, but I need to, it's become stagnant. Get me out of this pool, if you will. I get it. So, if all of this works out, when would this take place for you?
2021. Sometime maybe in the fall. I'd love to get an Elon Musk grant, when it gets wintertime next year so I can stay someplace warm after this 10-inch snowfall we just experienced.
Right.
So, an Elon Musk grant in September means I'm on Bali in October. So, I'm looking forward to that.
There you go. Well, I was going to say the next question is kind of, do you know a place? Like, where would this be? And obviously, Bali. There you go.
I'd love to be in Texas with him at his launch facility.
There you go. All right.
It's revolutionary. He's put up something that hasn't been done before, and I don't think I could get NASA clearance to get into the big rooms with my fucking history. No way. But I'm pretty sure Elon might not, bar me from entry if we're burning one.
And he says no, and he's standing right there just like, nah, you just wave a bag of weed, and he's like, all right, come on.
I might be able to, lean over him and intimidate him a little bit. He's not that tall of a guy.
Well, last but not least, why? Why would you smoke with them? I mean, you kind of touched on it already, but, is there any more you care to add about why you would smoke with Elon Musk?
Well, first of all, I think that when you consume cannabis with someone, you create more memorable experiences, even if it's just dialogue, even if you're just in a circle, and even if it's people that you've known for your entire life. While you're smoking cannabis, I think I get more out of it. I'm not going to say that I retain more, because I think that would be incorrect for me to say, knowing my personal skills and abilities, but I feel like the experience is more real to me. It gets burned into my brain more indelibly, and I feel like you develop more of a personal affinity for that particular individual you smoke with. So I really think that consuming cannabis with somebody far superior to having a beer. A beer, and we crush some peanuts and we eat and we watch TV. No. I'd rather smoke a joint, sitting in a circle, talking about the meaning of life and the nature of gravity. I mean, wow.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, the metaphysics behind that kind of, it makes sense, because very similar to cannabis, food is right there. It's hand in hand with cannabis, and I've kind of made it my, I wouldn't say mantra, but a goal of mine to kind of pick up where Bourdain left off and add cannabis to it. I mean, let's face it, culture, cannabis, and cooking, those three things right there are something that all people know about. We all different in ways of doing it, but it all really means the same to us. So the metaphysical emotions behind that in and of itself is something that we need to bring back to culture and normalize again, if you will. It's interesting because I've got this theory where you can take a person of two different languages that obviously don't speak, let's say Russian and Chinese, okay? You can set down cannabis and you can set down something to eat in front of them. They're going to, probably roll up, eat, then roll up again, okay? But fact of the matter is, they're going to know what to do, why, when, and where, and how. You understand? That's my point. And so it's interesting that, I don't think it's an olive branch that people are passing back and forth. I think it's a well-lit joint, or something. But I 100% agree with you, because it takes the anxiety out of the situation. It calms the waters, if you will, so you can just kind of float, a little eloquently, so you can kind of just take it all in, with a grain of salt, however you need to, and communicate with someone and reach out, and I think that's direly important, and one of the reasons where I believe that cannabis became essential during this monstrosity that we call COVID. It's it goes without saying. Sorry.
Anthony Bourdain would have absolutely incorporated cannabis into his broadcasts and his cooking if society would have allowed him at that time. I think if he had lasted another 5 or 6 years, he would be able to do exactly those things. And he would be doing what Martha Stewart's attempting to do, which is reestablish a reputation within the culinary, industry, centered around a cannabis theme.
Yeah. And it's sad because a lot of people grew up, reading his books and things of that nature, watching his shows. They were a cook for that reason, X, Y, and Z. But when we lost him back in 2018, it's interesting. 2018 was a terrible, terrible, terrible fucking year for me, because we lost Bourdain and I lost my mom a few months later, and so it was a terrible year for me. And so my mom always watched Bourdain and was like, hey, you could do that. I was like, no, I can't, because people know who he is. Nobody fucking knows who I am. Nobody wants to watch me on TV. What the fuck are you talking about? She's like, that's great, but you need to do that. I was like, that's great, but you're drunk. And she's like, I'm not. I was drunk, but that's not the point. The point is, I haven't seen anybody, my mom or Bourdain, I haven't seen anybody pick up where he left off or she left off. You understand? No one does it. It's one thing to be like, oh my God, he was amazing, or I miss him, or we need him. That's great. That's fantastic. But you know what he would have done? He would have expected, and he's probably rolling in his grave right now, my mom too. Why didn't anybody continue my work? Why didn't anybody pick up where I left off? That's the point, And so it's interesting because I just went on a show a couple of weeks ago, Cannabis Talk 101, with the Pot Brothers at Law out in California, talking about this exact same thing. It's important that we continue this message because, yes, those people are right. We do need it these days. And to emphasize a point like that and to help educate and medicate people with mixing food in cannabis, I think it's brilliant. I think it would be absolutely brilliant, because that's the thing. You don't need to add hundreds of milligrams of THC to something to medicate from it. My golden rule, and I'll have to send you some of this sometime or make something for you, it's 100 milligrams of CBD with 10 milligrams of THC. For me, that's perfect.
1-to-10 ratio, Sometimes, here's what I know about pediatric use in Michigan. A lot of parents have told me that cannabidiol CBD is very effective for their children, but only if it's given in combination with a small amount of THC. I think what we realize, those of us that worship the whole plant, is that when you take any of its individual components and separate them as a separate thing, it loses something, because it now no longer has this beautiful soup with which it used to flourish. So when you take CBD in isolation and don't include any of the other cannabinoids, it is less effective as a medicine. I think it's less effective on our bodies. I will tell you, if you've never juiced raw cannabis before, you gotta juice raw cannabis. Yep. It is the greatest. Raw cannabis, especially when it's taken at a certain time, you can look it up online within the flowering period. It has all of the beautiful cannabinoids, and none of them have been exposed to heat. So none of them have been changed or altered. They exist in their natural state. When you drink that raw cannabis juice, it gets you here. But then you smoke a joint, and it takes you to here, because now you're getting the full spectrum of all of the cannabinoids, naturally existing ones, and then the ones that exist after they've been decarboxylated as well. So now your system, every little bit of it that can potentially be activated is on fire.
That. I love it. I love it. We'll have to get together, man, and we'll throw it on a grill or some shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, get some people together. That's kind of like, I just cook for somebody. Smoking a joint's one thing, and I'm sure we'll smoke a joint, at some time. We'll cross paths. Absolutely. And I look forward to that. But for me, man, cooking for somebody is a whole different, that's just what we do. That's my communication tactic. I'm learning, I'm writing. I'm learning how to write. Over the last year, I kind of put my foot down and made it my endeavor to create it, to pick up where Bourdain left off. That's my point. He'll say the first thing, he's like, jobs don't give a shit about you. Get a different gig. If you died, they would replace you almost immediately. And that sucks, but that's the nature of the beast. And you know what? That's what he would want. And so that's what I'm trying to do, man. It's not about the money. It's about getting this message out to people and healing them through the means of cannabis. And you're absolutely right, man. It's to the point to where, like, if we juice it and then we smoke a joint, we're able to, better that. I'm going to go try that. I got 10 plants in the next room over here. Yeah. You just take so if I take the fan leaves, or do I need the buds?
Fan leaves, small buds, but you really need an industrial juicer, because if you have a regular juicer, it'll just eat it right up. This is much tougher than kale. If you take a look at some articles online, they'll tell you exactly what the optimal state of flowering development is for your plants when you harvest for this, and then also the type of equipment you need. But remember, there are directors. There are things like mango. Right. When you put mango along with the raw cannabis juice, the chemicals in the mango help direct the cannabinoids to get to your system, and it increases your absorption. So there's so much involved in the science of raw cannabis juicing. You are going to love to make that your new hobby. I promise.
Oh yeah. I've actually made it an obsession, because when chefs are given recipes or certain things to obsess about, they do it. They just jump right in. And so it's interesting. So these things that you're talking about, it's terpenes. So the terpenes in mango is myrcene, mycrene. They allow for a broader absorption of the cannabinoids. So you're absolutely right. So when you juice it, everything's cold pressed. You get this whole spectrum of cannabinoids that heat hasn't even touched. And then you smoke a joint. Oh, dude, that sounds delicious to me. It does. And it's interesting because I've started taking just raw cannabis and putting it in butter. And then I'll sous vide something, low temp, and I'll notice that don't decarboxylate it. You do that, and then you add a little bit more butter at the end that has been decarboxylated, just to kind of glaze and heat the outside of the meat and give it a little bit of flavor. It's absolutely insane. So that was a little bit more cooking technique versus just juicing something. But I think that I can definitely, I got a Vitamix. We'll make this happen.
You have access to flour and access to fan leaves and things, then you're in good. You're golden.
Well, this is going to be fun as shit, man. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. That's going to have to that's gonna have to be like an accreditation in my cookbook, because I'm writing a cannabis cookbook, and I actually have an Anthony Bourdain recipe that I've been given permission to use that's infused in this cookbook.
Well, and so you should certainly include something about raw cannabis juicing. People are dying for the information, and there's nothing in print about it. If your cookbook includes some instructions or some basic info about that, that will be a defining segment, I think.
Oh, absolutely, man. I look forward to it. I'll make sure we kind of collab on a recipe, and we'll gift you the notes and all that in there. Because exactly, man. Let's do it. But man, thank you for coming on the show today. This was a good turnaround for a bad snow day. You feel me?
I do, and snow days are not bad. Yeah. That's how you look at it. I love it. It's pretty as hell out there today, so I'm going to enjoy it. Except the time when I have to shovel it. But other than that, I'll be enjoying it. Yeah.
See, I already got the shoveling done. That's what it was. That's why it was bad. It sucked, man. Digging somebody out this morning. But hey, I did my good deed, right?
Yep.
But no, I look forward to it, guys. Oh, absolutely. You guys, make sure you tune into the Jazz Cabbage Cafe today. If anybody needs to find the show, Rick, where can they find it?
Well, we broadcast live on Facebook from 4 to 6 p.m., but we're available on all streaming platforms and on YouTube shortly after the conclusion of the show. So you can catch us almost anywhere.
There it is, y'all. There it is. Jazz Cabbage Cafe. Make sure you check it out. I watch it a lot. I mean, I'm sure you've seen me, tap in here and there. I like just putting it in the background. I may not watch the video, but I'll at least listen to it. A lot of good information there, y'all. Today's guests is the Michigan CannaCast. Or my CannaCast, the guys. It's Groove and what's the other guy? Dave or Smooth Dave or something like that. But I've watched those guys. They have a terpene talk that they do. Absolutely love it. Stupid informational. Like, you guys, they're doing a good thing. They're going to be on the Jazz Cabbage Cafe today. Make sure you go check it out. We're doing great things here in Michigan. We're no longer the high five that America left standing, y'all. We're about to smack you in the face with some cannabis, y'all. But we're at the another ending edition of the Deliciously Dope Daily Chronicles with the awesome Rick Thompson, man. I appreciate it, man. Cheers to you. I'm your boy Chef Rodney 117 here. All my tokers, jokers, and smokers. I'll see y'all Thursday. Appreciate it. Peace.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.